The 11th month of the fiscal year. Is it the 11th hour? That's Blue Ribbon Commission, as in taxes. In what direction is it headed? How much tax revenue marijuana will produce isn't known, along with a lot more. Plus, Washington and the Arkansas economy, the Arkansas environment. Arkansas Week, next.
Local broadcast of Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the award-winning Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Arkansas's largest major newspaper, bringing you local, national, and international news since 1819. By the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Arkansas Week. Money and marijuana. Just a couple of things we'll be kicking around in the next half hour. Bobby Ampazan joins us from Arkansas Public Media. Wesley Brown from Talk Business and Politics, and Ernie Dumas, an independent journalist and columnist for Arkansas Times. Wesley, just as we prepared the broadcast at mid-morning Friday, we got the numbers in from DFNA. We have 1 month left in the fiscal. Take it away.
Yeah, we're 1 month from the end of the fiscal year, which ends on June 30th, and I think it kind of as we expected all through. Once we got in the legislative session, you start hearing speculation that at the end of the year the state was going to have a shortfall. So year to date, right now we're at below forecast or 49.1 million. Or 1%, and there was a revision in the forecast on May 2nd, and it revised your year-end expectations a shortfall of about 70 million. So it's going to be pretty interesting, the discussion that takes place over the next few weeks at the state capitol. But it's maybe some shoring up the budget at the state capitol.
Ernie, the percentages seem small, but they translate into millions of dollars, and it's a budget that's sliced fairly thin.
Well, it is, and the problem is immediately you've got this is the second, so you've got about 28 days left in June, in which to make the revenue fit the outgo, and that's required by the Constitution, and we have to do that. So, and that's going to be interesting how the state does that inside every agency, and particularly at the departmental level. The Department of Finance and Administration has to see that it comes out even at the end of the year. How do you do that when you've got slow tax collections coming in, and so we'll never know how they achieve that. There's always always some suspicion about that what they'll do is just hold up the tax refunds. This is the season when everybody's putting out all the tax refunds, so they can just say, well, we've got a little glitch here. We'll hold up the tax refunds until July, until the next fiscal year. They probably won't do that, but that's always a suspicion.
Mr. and Mrs. Arkansas.
But this is unusual because on a year-to-year basis, I guess our net general revenues, money that actually is distributed out to state programs and schools and state agencies and so forth, is going to be perhaps below a year ago, or if not almost even with a year ago, and that is extremely rare in a growing economy. It never happens in a growing economy. It's only in a recessionary period that you have a fall off in revenues from one year to the next. There's always, even in very slow economic times, some growth in revenues every year, except when you cut taxes. So this is, I think, pretty clearly the result of cutting tax rates in the last 2 or 3 sessions of the legislature. And of course they always project that, well, we cut taxes, it's going to it's going to speed up economic growth, and we'll get improved tax collections rather than reduced tax collections. It never seems to work out that way at the national level or the state level, and I think that's what we're seeing now.
Well, we are aided to no small extent by a sharp reduction over the last 2, 3, 4 years, Wesley, in the state's unemployment rate.
Yeah.
You got people working, so they're paying tax.
Yeah, also at the time this revenue report, the U.S. unemployment report came out, and it said now the U.S. unemployment rate is at 4.3%, compared to the Arkansas, which is 8 percentage points below that, at an all-time record last month of 3.5%. And I've actually working on a story where people are saying there's still room for the job market to grow, because you have people, there's a lot of temporary workers in the workforce, and you have the unaccounted for workers, the discouraged workers, who are saying, okay, I think I can go back into the workforce and get a job now. And so you got those people coming back in the workforce, and there may be, but to aid those numbers, still corporations, a lot of the publicly traded corporations and the bigger corporations the revenues are down, which translate into less revenue coming into to the state coffers, and a lot of them have hiring freezes. So, but small and medium-sized businesses are still hiring. They're still putting out the one-ad signs, and you're still getting people, but that is a interesting dynamic. You've got this roaring job market, but you've got, but when you look at the economic growth, as Ernie has alluded to, it's very tepid or very slow. We don't see generally the great growth in revenues and in job that you have when you have a job market like this.
Well, and the national, let's go to the national for a second, and its effect on the local, because no sooner they probably knew they were coming anyway, but over there at the Federal Reserve this morning, the consensus was, wow, let's cool it down a little bit.
Yeah, we're with the interest rate, there it's kind of, let's hold out and wait, and one of the Fed, can't think out of which, I think out of Minneapolis, the Fed chairman out of Minneapolis came out and said, well, the Trump administration, the economy on the Trump administration, which started out pretty hot basically because of the things from the Obama administration, but it has slowed. This morning, the number of jobs that were added to the economy was the lowest for the first 5 months of the year. Only 132,000 jobs added to the economy. That has over the last 12 months, it's been averaging about 220,000 per month. So that's well below expectations. So there are some signs that, that the economy is slowing down. The first quarter GDP was 1.1%, very 1.2%, very slow. So the expectations are it's not going to pick up in the rest of the quarter, as you noted that the Fed said, So
yeah, Bobby.
Well, I think this is interesting coming this week against the backdrop of the Paris Climate Agreement and the Trump administration's decision to move away from that. You're hearing a lot coming out of that decision internationally, nationally. One of the most interesting things, I think, are the people talking about the jobs created potentially by moving out of the agreement within the coal or fossil fuel industry versus the renewable industry. Mm-hmm. And a lot of advocates for renewable energy are talking about, well, there are many, many more jobs in solar and wind and renewable than there are in fossil fuels, partly because it's a growing industry, partly because it's an innovative industry. It takes more kind of workers to get it up and off the ground. But kind of what kind of jobs those are is a big discussion, as is always the case. Manufacturing jobs are considered really, prime, and service sector jobs not so much. When we talk about the economics of this, we have to consider the types of jobs being created too, against the types of jobs being lost.
Yeah, and when you look at the job market, you look at the job numbers when you go into them. And I'm sure Annie can tell us, back when the Arkansas economy was really going, you had a lot of blue-collar type jobs that were being added to the economy. Now most of the jobs that are being added to the economy are service sector. Right. In fact, the number of service sector jobs has eclipsed, about 7 or 8 years ago, eclipsed the number of goods producing jobs. So what you're getting is retail, temporary jobs, administrative support type jobs, that are being added to the economy, not the robust type jobs where you can support a family and have good benefits. So that has a really broad effect on the type of jobs that are added, and we're not seeing the type of jobs that added that really boost wages and put people broadly into the labor pool.
It's really a shape-shifting economy, Aaron.
It is. You know, back during the sluggish years, when after the Great Recession in 2007, 2008, 2009, in those very sluggish years after that, we were growing, but not very much. Arkansas, all up until about 2 years ago, Arkansas every year would produce a huge budget surplus every year. And it would finance construction and some highways, and it would finance the General Improvement Fund, a little kitty that all the legislators got to parcel out to their favorite little projects back home. So you had all of that, but now we've got a kind of a pretty robust economy, and we're flat. So it's pretty odd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Wesley brought up Paris, which the Trump administration acted on Thursday to withdraw. It'll be a long and complicated process if it is in fact effected. From the Arkansas Congress, well, at least from our two senators anyway, there were cheers, mostly boos elsewhere, I think, including Wesley in big business. So let's try to bring this back home to Arkansas. Let us assume for a second that Paris was yesterday. So what's going to be the trickle down, as it were, for Arkansas, both in terms of the economy and the environment? We don't mind coal here anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that has happened in Arkansas is that over the last year, we've seen, as Bobby alluded to, several announcements for renewable solar projects, renewable energy. So companies were moving in that direction. L'Oreal, which you mentioned also, L'Oreal did not support, and they have a big plant in North Little Rock that's going to be powered by solar power. And Walmart, which has been environmentally friendly for about the last decade, came out and said, we don't support pulling out. And even ExxonMobil has come out and said we don't support
Secretary
this.
Tillerson's old.
Yeah. So the thing that I think that people are concerned about is that U.S. has one, it didn't keep its word to say that we're going to take lead on this issue, and we're going to, and even though it was a voluntary accord, there were some regulatory issues that mandates that were put in place, like the Clean Power Plan that President Obama introduced, that was going to reduce carbon emissions at power plants and basically move the U.S. economy and the U.S. Power industry from coal, well, as you mentioned, to more cleaner natural gas, renewable energy, wind, and so what that does is now what you're going to see is some of the companies are going to pull back, and I think that will have effect. As Bobby said, clean energy was starting to add jobs to the economy, and you're starting to see technology advances and things like that. So I think in Arkansas, energy has already moved. They're building the biggest solar plant in Arkansas down in Stuttgart, and then there's one in Camden. There's also several wind farms that are coming to Arkansas. So the companies are making those steps, but some will now say, well, really, I don't have to do anything, and I think you're going to see that impact in terms of jobs, because I don't think that coal is ever coming back. It's past the point where coal people are going to continue to burn coal, and you may see a few additions in jobs but most of the coal companies are sitting on the precipice of bankruptcy right now. So I don't think we're ever going to see a clean coal-powered economy.
Well, and to the point, if coal does come back, it will come. Assuming that coal can come back, it will come back with far fewer workers than it ever employed before.
I mean, coal is being eclipsed right now by natural gas, let alone wind and solar. Every one of the big electric companies in Arkansas, I'm thinking about SWEPCO, Entergy, and then the electric cooperatives, they're all treating their energy, they call them portfolios. Their energy portfolios, like a mutual fund or like a good retirement fund, they're diversifying. Every one of them is talking about, we want a slice of wind, we want a slice of solar to go along with our slice of natural gas and our coal. That's the electric production in America. And one of the concerns for these companies, or really for economists, I suppose, about the Paris Climate Agreement pullout is that China is the industrial producer of a lot of solar panels and wind energy technology, and we're going to look like like the car company that didn't go along with self-driving cars or something. Like we're so far behind, we can't catch up in terms of the production of the equipment for renewable energy. So it's an interesting economic kind of forecasting development.
Ernie, the pure politics of it, even if this were to be affected, I mean, the phase out, the pull out, and even as he announced it, Mr. Trump indicated, well, maybe we can renegotiate this. Are we watching health care reform here, tax care reform here? Is it?
It does look similar to those things. It does.
Sound and the fury.
But obviously, who can be surprised that he announced the pullout? He promised it during the campaign. That's what his base. His base, I think, is largely climate change denial. It's all a hoax. Climate change is a hoax. It's the Chinese propagated this thing years ago. So everybody, I think, knew that's what he was going to do, despite the protest on his own in his own family and his own administration, his own cabinet, his own members of his own staff. That's what he was going to do, and I think it will play well with his base, which is a significant majority in Arkansas, not nationally, I think. Nationally, I think there's a vast majority of Americans believe that climate change is real. They've seen evidence of it, if not in their own communities. They might have traveled. They've seen evidence of it. So politically, I think it's, for the short term, you won't see any drop, I think, in his poll numbers. But I think it spells troubles for the Republican Party. I guess our whole congressional delegation, all 6 members, said he did the right thing. Governor Hutchinson said he did the right thing. But I think there'll be some fallout from it. I think in case of Arkansas, when we first proposed the Clean Power Plan, which is the chief implementing tool for achieving the climate, the greenhouse gas reductions by 2026. Right. It's a Clean Power Plan. When it first came out, Arkansas was one of the states that would be hardest hit, right, because we had all these coal plants. We had just finished that giant coal plant down at
White Bluff
down around Hope. Yeah.
We
just finished that thing. And so we had more to overcome. States like California has already met its 2026 it has taken steps and it's already met the 2026. But we were the one that's going to have the most trouble. But since then, Entergy Corporation, SWEPCO, the co-ops have taken pretty dramatic steps, and I think they're not going to have any problems meeting the standards, and they'll probably still meet them, in spite of the fact that we pulled out of the power, and in spite of the fact that the Trump administration is eviscerating the Clean Power Plan and all the other environmental regulations of recent years. We'll probably still meet it, the deadline, because the Entergy bought this big gas-powered plant down at El Dorado, which is a mammoth plant, our third of it, at any rate. Right. So that's going to help us meet it, and all the solar and everything. So I think Arkansas is going to be in pretty good shape. We're not going to be losing any jobs or anything as a result of this, I think.
Yeah. Back to state taxes, if we can, for a second, Wesley, because we have a blue ribbon commission to review the Arkansas tax code, and we've got another meeting coming up.
Right. We got one on June 6th, which is, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday. They hold the task force holds their second meeting. First meeting was very preliminary, just kind of laying the groundwork for looking at tax. I think there's going to be a presentation by the Bureau of Labor. I think one of the bureaus up at the state capitol. They're going to give a review of what our Arkansas tax code looks like, and some of the exemptions that are out there. And it's a long list of exemptions in the business sector, to nonprofits, to just a broad range of exemptions, but also just looking at what parts of the tax code can we improve. There's a number of studies out there that said Arkansas has the worst or the most complex tax code in the United States. So we're going to take a look at that, and then I think there's going to be the debate on what can be done to improve it. Everybody's talking about, and Ernie can probably tell you, there's been attempts at this before in the past. You know.
Ernie, I was wondering, how did it ever get so complicated, our tax code?
Well, you know, our income tax code is basically based on the federal. Every time the federal government changes the income tax code, we adopt the changes here. The next session of the legislature. We've had these things for many years. I started covering the legislature in about 1963. I don't know how many blue ribbon tax commissions, tax reform commissions that we've had. I've written about a number of them, and
all of them recommended raising taxes, didn't they?
And it's always for the purpose of lowering taxes. That's the purpose behind this is to find a way to lower taxes. But you know, all these, particularly the sales tax. The sales tax is just loaded up with tax exemptions. Virtually every legislative session since 1935 has found a way, well, somebody needs a tax exemption. They don't need to be collecting sales taxes on farm implements or hay or seed and feed or whatever, or the Boy Scouts or something.
Widgets.
Whatever. And so that's, well, yeah, other states are doing it, so we've got to do it too. So they just, every section, and then they come back and look at them, and they'll do a review of this, and then they'll examine. And there was no, we need that exemption, a tax exemption on equipment, manufacturing equipment. They have to have that. You have to have it on electricity. So none of them will be abolished in the end, is my prediction. Maybe on Boy Scouts, maybe they might say we need to remove that exemption for Boy Scouts or something. But
yeah,
I'm just. Never mind.
And already
old cynical Dumas. Well, how cynical is Brother Apazan, because we got marijuana on the agenda too. Where are we on this?
The Medical Marijuana Commission had a meeting this week in which they're trying to kind of outline the application process that interested parties would have to go through to submit and be chosen. As has been reported widely, there's going to be 5 cultivation facilities. These are the actual farms that grow the marijuana, and 32 dispensaries all throughout the state. And so they decided that the application process would be, well, but it's still up for debate. It was supposed to be 20 pages.
So they didn't decide.
So they didn't decide. It was supposed to be 20 pages, which for any application seems pretty thorough. 20-page applications. Dr. Carlos Roman, who's on the commission, said 20 pages is about his threshold, considering they're going to get dozens and dozens of applications. And some lawyers, both in the audience and on the commission, said 20 pages might not be enough. To which, you know, kind of the collective groan of,
lawyers.
You know, lawyers should be longer than 20 pages. But they'll decide next week. It looks like the bulk of the application will be folks' business model, but there will be some points given, bonus points if you're a minority-owned business, if you're a female-owned business, as well as military veterans, it looks like. So there's going to be a lot of, this is really the crux of the whole thing, is who's going to get a chunk of this pie.
When is the pie going to be available? Do we even know?
Well, they'll begin, applications will begin being submitted right around July 1st, and the commission is expected to decide by September.
Yeah, and you know, I'm already getting just kind of some inquiries from some local businesses who are trying to figure out where to enter in, what business to enter in. I mean, there are going to be a number of opportunities on the financial side or in the dispensary side, and of course the legal side. So I think there are a lot of people who are out there just waiting to see, and hoping. Okay, well, this may be a good. Where's the business opportunity here? And maybe, as we've been talking about it, you may see a new area of revenue growth for the state.
Yeah, all mirth aside, for those those patients who demonstrate and are eagerly awaiting clinical use, do we know when this is going to be available?
The Health Department and the Department of Finance and Administration are both predicting early 2018. Not this year.
So we're talking about basically a 6-month period then.
At least.
Okay, we got to end it there because we're out of time. Guys, thanks to you for coming in. As always, thanks to you for watching. See you next week.
Local broadcast of Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the award-winning Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Arkansas's largest major newspaper, bringing you local, national, and international news since 1819. By the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.